Perfect. Now we are ready to start. Okay, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. Today we are here to talk about implementing cross-curricular projects. We are with Hannah and me, Lorena.
Hello, welcome everybody. Excited to talk about this today.
Yes. So today we're going to start by discussing some of the theoretical aspects first in relation to what it is to incorporate project-based learning, but also content-based instruction. What are the advantages? We'll have an overview and some of the principles in relation to content-based learning. We'll also have a discussion in classroom applications. What are your thoughts and ideas? And finally, we'll talk about content-based learning in Our Storyscape. We'll present some of our STEAM projects and mindfulness projects that we include in our Storyscape. So we'll move on to our next slide. So in relation to content-based instruction, according to West, Snow, and Brinton, it is an approach in language education for ESL and EFL students too. We have a differentiation between what is instruction, and we have like the instruction focuses in content and in language at the same time, which is a great way to motivate your students while teaching English, in this case, at the same time. This type of instruction is normally a theme or a topic-based approach. So we are going to discuss a specific topic, and around that topic, we're going to also carry out or incorporate. What are the advantages of content-based instruction? It provides a combination of comprehensible input and integrated skills activities. By teaching our students to perform or to do certain types of tasks, we are also helping them understand the content in English, in the target language in this case, and making that information accessible to our students. Another good advantage is that we also provide for authentic context in which this type of content will be used. Because it is a theme-based approach, we also have active learning on the students' side, and they will acquire or they will get hands-on experience by doing it. Remember, in our last session, we discussed different learning styles. So definitely in these different projects, you will see the application of the kinesthetic style, because students will be first reading information, but then performing or doing these types of experiments and projects in the class. So that's what we are looking at right now. So this for the visual learners, for those who appreciate visualization, here we have a Venn diagram showing what I was explaining before, which is this like separate aspects in terms of what is content per se of any type of discipline or subject, mathematical, chemistry, any type of like discipline or subject, as separate from language when we are focused on teaching our students to speak a different language. And in this case, CBI or content-based instruction incorporates both. This idea of teaching our students new pieces of information or different type of information by using English in this case, or the target language, in order to do that. So what happens with our students? They learn another language at the same time as they acquire new information. So the use of language is meaningful. So there is use of meaningful content in this case. language is also a meaningful medium to access this new information. So the motivation is, well, I want to learn how I can say this or this, expression in another language. And this is something that typically does not happen all the time in language instruction, because we really focus on, making sure students know how to differentiate a verb from an adverb, a noun from an adjective, the position. But at the same time, we could be doing that. We could be teaching our students, let's say, the verb to be in a different way, by showing them how a process is done, or by giving them definitions, or by asking them to describe different things they see. And you will see some examples in our Storyscape, and we'll talk about it in detail now. Before that, let me ask you a couple of questions in terms of cross-curricular content. What kind of content do you think we can teach in our classes? What type of cross-curricular content do we teach, or can we teach in our classes?
So because language is how we talk to each other and communicate ideas, there's really no limit to what other sorts of subjects you can teach in the classroom. It can be anything from math to science to social issues. You can teach them, you could even teach them how to skateboard in the target language or something silly like that. And they're learning a new skill at the same time as learning the language. And like, as you said, that could be the motivator you want to talk about this new thing, so you have to figure out the words you need to express your ideas.
Yeah. Yes. So if you are teaching a class, what kind of specialized contents, or are you teaching another specialized content in your classes? Why or why not?
No, I'm not currently teaching any classes, but I have in the past, and I don't think I ever took advantage of this. I think if I did, I would try and collaborate with the other teachers in my school. For example, if the science teacher is talking about this with the students, maybe they're talking about the solar system, then I can borrow those ideas and bring it into my language classroom. Or maybe even have the students tell me about something that they're learning in another class.
That's awesome. Yes, I think there is the reason why we want to incorporate these different types of projects is because there is like a misconception, in terms of language instruction, based on like, oh, my students are only learning the verb to be, so I can't teach this or that,
Mm-hmm.
And it's like you said before, like we can virtually teach anything we want to our students if we have a very clear objective, and we want to break it into smaller pieces if this is for beginner students, but literally they can learn anything. And if we can make this experience more memorable and more motivating, because this is something that they are currently learning in their classes, in the other classes, in the science class or in any other class, that will make more sense to them too, because they will learn how to say it or how to talk about it in a foreign language, in this case in English.
Mm-hmm.
So this is like the reason why I pose this question is because this is like a misconception of, oh, I can only teach this, I can only, not necessarily. And the idea today is to show you guys and teachers how we have implemented it in our Storyscape, how you can do it. And we already have some of the projects ready made for you, so you could easily use them with your classes without any prepping or planning on your end. So we're gonna show you the first project, and Hannah is gonna tell you about it.
Mhm. Okay, so first of all, if you look at the current moment, they're currently not out yet, but when they are available within a few weeks, you will find the class project for any of the units. If you go down to the culture and connection section, and at the very bottom, there is this class project that you can do with your students. So in this case, for Unit 2, we have this project that relates back to Story 4 in this case. Each of the projects that we have been designed to connect back to some vocabulary or themes that we've already covered in the unit. So your students won't have that far to go to understand the project or activity. And we also start off by giving a clear goal for the project. So in this case, we have this mindfulness activity you will introduce your students to. And we introduce all of the basic necessary vocabulary your students might need to talk about what they're about to do. So that's the first part. We then give you a few expressions or questions to talk about with your students. So, maybe they don't know the word to cut yet. So before you even begin, you'll take a piece of paper and you'll say, let's cut the paper. And you can do that with your class. They can have fun making confetti on the floor for a little bit or something like that. So these are the different actions that they're going to need to finish this mindfulness project. We also have these materials, a material list for you. So make sure that you can hand that out to all your students beforehand. And we give you step-by-step instructions. In this case, we show you how to fold a piece of paper into a little flower. And then you will glue that onto a straw or whatever recycled materials you have available. And at the very end, you can take some perfume or, something that smells good and just like spray it on the flower or something. And then enjoy a mindful moment with your students and ask them to relax. And then you can reflect with them. How do you feel? Do you like the flower? We have these phrases for you at the end so that you can reflect with your students together. And it's really quite a basic activity, but your students really don't need a lot of vocabulary to do this with you in English. What students don't love a little break from staring at the computer screen or, filling out worksheets. So this will be like a nice one to just relax and practice English, but with something that they can find useful. And, maybe they learn a new craft and then afterwards, maybe one of your students will get really into just making flowers in class or something, So that's the first one that we have. Do you have any comments on that, Marina?
Yes. Another thing that I wanted to comment on is that some schools have already started this movement towards including mindfulness and breathing techniques in their classroom. So we want to make sure that teachers also have the resources and the tools to incorporate, because of course, for some teachers, this might be pretty new. Maybe other teachers are more experienced with mindfulness techniques, but normally, and for most language teachers, we haven't received this type of specific instruction in the incorporation of mindfulness. So here we have a very simple activity, a combination of a craft activity, and that will be used as a prompt, as your prompt for showing your students how to breathe, and a step-by-step guide on how to do that with your students. so that you know every different type of reading exercise that you will be doing with them. So this is a great way to support teachers who would like to incorporate mindfulness techniques, but are not quite sure how to do that. And another thing is that these types of mindful moments help students and teachers to have a different classroom atmosphere, because you know there is some research and there are some scholarly articles that I was reading, which is really interesting. And having a moment to breathe not only brings more oxygen to students' brain, but it also improves their academic performance, because a brain that has more oxygen is more likely to incorporate more knowledge, let's say, or to be more willing to learn. And so that is a great thing to know, and something that has not been mostly, let's say, stressed before, and not given a lot of importance or attention. But something really small like reading and taking 5 or 10 minutes to incorporate those reading techniques can make a very big difference in your classroom atmosphere and in your students' academic performance. So we might want to keep that in mind.
Awesome. Yeah. So it's really unemphasized, like the importance or the impact that taking a moment to rest can have on the brain and the emotions of us and our students. So that is the project that we have for Unit 2, and this one focuses on the mindfulness aspect. But we have projects for a few different like cross-curricular disciplines. So I'm going to jump to the Unit 4 one, which again connects back to one of the stories in the unit. But this one is more of a science and math project. So again, we give you the clear goal and a few vocabulary words that your students will need to work through this project together. And you can go through each one with your students. So elsewhere in Our Storyscape, we kind of encourage these scaffolding the vocabulary before you read a story. So we have those core vocabulary sections. This is a more condensed section. We just provide it for you in a short list here. But we really encourage that you go through each word with them. You know, say the car is very speedy, and you point to a car, or maybe you can present a video of a cheetah running really fast and say, look at the speed of the cheetah, he's running very fast. So you can use other resources to get across the meaning of these words that you'll need in the project. You then also have questions that you'll need to ask your students throughout the experiment, and then of course the materials that you'll need for this project. And so this particular one involves students will create a ramp, and they will have two different balls that will represent, one will be the tortoise and one will be the hare, that connects back to one of the stories in Unit 4. You might want to choose a ball, like one ball is slightly heavier or bigger than the other, so that you have different variables to compare. So they'll build a ramp and measure they'll measure the speed of each ball. And for this one, not every project has this, but for this one in particular, there will be available a worksheet for your students to fill out. You'll be able to print it out and hand it to each of your students. There will be a link at the top of the page to the worksheet, but you'll also be able to find it if you go to the teachers panel, click on resources, and it will be in the additional resources section. We also have a lot of other things in here that you can check out that can help you as you use Our Storyscape. They will measure the speed of each ball and record their findings in this worksheet. So the one that represents the turtle, they'll put how many meters it went and how much time it took, and then using the simple mathematic equation, they'll be able to figure it out. And you can even ask your students to run or walk the same distance for a little exercise activity, get them moving, do the kinetic learning sort of thing. So I don't advise that they run down the ramp, because we do ask you to make it out of cardboard, and that might destroy the project, but they can certainly measure their own speed at the end of the project to, for a little bit of added fun there. So yeah. And then a lot of the times for these projects, we, at the very end, we'll give you ideas for how to expand upon it. For example, here, what happens to the speed of the objects when you change the surface of the ramp? So maybe they glue sandpaper to the cardboard or carpet, or they glue cotton balls everywhere. Like, you can ask them to have fun with it and see, and then measure the speed after you change the texture. Or maybe they try rolling cubes down the ramp. I don't think that will go as fast, but you'll have to let your students see for themselves. So we give you the step-by-step instructions to conduct that with your students, and some useful vocabulary and expressions that will help you navigate it together. Did you have any other comments on this particular one, Lorena?
Yes, would you project the worksheet, please? I want to comment on some of the, as we were talking about, some of the misconceptions in terms of incorporating concepts that are like, oh, I can't teach this. This is too much. Well, the story that the students read in this unit, one of the stories is about Mr. Tortoise and Mr. Hare. And it is like an intertextual, let's say, story, because we know that the main story, but in this case, they have a date at a restaurant, and guess who arrives late to that meeting, So Tortoise was waiting for Mr. Hare, and I love this story, and that was the inspiration to write this project. And in this case, it's a pretty basic idea in terms of how do we calculate acceleration, So it's basically you have to do just a mathematical operation. So you have to add this distance and the speed. And this is, distance and time. So that's how you come up with the calculation for acceleration. And this pretty, let's say, the concept of speed, the concept of distance and time is something that we can easily teach our students. We can have measuring tape, we can have time, even a clock or our cell phones, and they will get that idea very quickly. And then we have to, when we make the ramp, in this case, we suggested cardboard, but maybe they come up with other ideas. And that's the great thing about these types of projects. But maybe they say, well, how about doing this? And that's developing students' discovery and creativity, because we are testing with yourself, by experimenting, by trying to get the speed of your students. There may be other variables, and it's a pretty simple concept where we have to understand distance, time, and then we get the speed, and we can really do a lot. And it's so meaningful because sometimes we don't think about this in like, oh, like I had to research how to calculate speed, and it's pretty easy. And your students will learn something meaningful because they will learn how to calculate different types of speed and animal speeds or any type of speed, and they will know how to do it in English. So I think this is a very cool activity they can do. They can try like walking, maybe running, maybe walking backwards. You know, there are so many different variables, and creativity is like, it can take you to many different places. So these are some of the projects which is we're just showing you two, but we have more, and they are all very different and very motivating, and you will be able to incorporate them because they are already made, and they have all the instructions and step-by-step process on how you have to do it. So pretty much, and maybe after you do that, you will be like, wow, I can do this. It's not that complicated.
Yeah, it's pretty simple. And one thing I want to bring up real quick is that so these projects kind of give context to some of the things that we want to teach. For example, the math problem, well, you can teach a student how to calculate time, but you don't always give them like the context of like, how are they going to use this in real life? Well, maybe they'll have fun with it and measure the speed of, you know, the dog in their backyard after learning how to do this.
Yes.
And so it's also closely related with how we've done the IPA assessments at the end, where we give students context for something that they might actually do in real life or relate to. For example, this one in Unit 2 is a whole assessment based on the concept that they might go to Canada for a student exchange, and it walks them through different scenarios that they might do, and they use the English that they know so far to navigate through those. So you can think of the projects in a similar way. They don't have all the English, they're not 100% fluent, but they can use what they have in a meaningful way.
Yes, definitely. And that's the main goal. So on our next slide, you will see the contrast and let's say what each student and teachers also will get by doing that. So for the STEAM projects, which we have other ones that are, that are touching upon different other areas and subjects, but through the STEAM projects, our students also get exploration, discovery, experimentation, and a meaningful way to incorporate what they have already used and tried many more different things. And with the ones that incorporate mindfulness, like we said, we provide a moment to relax, and it also a way to get more oxygen to the brain, which sometimes we honestly forget and we don't really think about it. Even like as adults, like we spend so much time sometimes working and we don't realize how important it is to give our brain some time to do something different from what we're doing. And these are great ways to incorporate those into your classes. So we hope you enjoy them, you have fun with them, and get different results from what your students do, and create a new way for your students to use English in a meaningful way. So if you do have any questions, we also have our email, so you can always email us at efl@ourstoryscape.com. We're going to be able to answer all of your questions. And thank you so much for joining this webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.